everyone. I'm Brian Craig. This is where manga comes to talk, and we're going live, and we're going to talk about everything with this Bongino issue. All right, let's go. Welcome to the stream, everyone. My name is Brian Craig, and this is where manga comes to talk. And if you're on YouTube, you can see I spilled my coffee on me just a moment ago, but that's okay. The show must go on. Spilled coffee and all on my shirt. Okay, so Dan Bongino here. We Laura Loomer was the first one to break this story, and let's of course give Loomer the credit for this. She broke this story and was the first to have it. And as always, Laura Loomer, as she always is 100% correct. In fact, she has the highest rating of any journalist in America today so far as accuracy in reporting, and that is she's always right. So Dan Bongino, a lot of drama happened yesterday, and I didn't go live about this yesterday when it broke because I wanted to give it some time to play out, and here we are the next day, and this is going to continue to develop over the weekend and throughout the week. And Dan Bongino, it came out through the great Laura Loomer that there was a White House meeting actually, and Bongino, Kash Patel, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, involved in that meeting, and Bondi, and they were talking about everything that's happened with Epstein this week and the Epstein files and what it means and did we do enough? What should we have done? And Bongino is angry beyond imagination. So it's being reported. And I've seen two reports, varying reports of this. The original reports on this said that he didn't show up to work on Friday out of protest. Then there was another report that he hasn't been in the office since Wednesday. So he missed Thursday and Friday over this, which is true, has not fully been confirmed. But it's all about these files, the Epstein files. And I want to talk about this, and I want to play some audio, in particular one that adds a lot to this in just a few minutes. And I do want to take your calls. If you're watching me live, you can call me live on the air. The number is pinned in the live chat. 888-465-2631 is my number. 888-465-2631. So, let's say Dan Bongino leaves over this. I want to talk about that first, okay? Let's just say that Dan Bongino quits over this, okay, and resigns. There's a few things about this that I want to bring up and talk about. One, I know many of you, like me, watched The Apprentice and The Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump. And in fact, they're all on Amazon. And my wife and I, we've been rewatching. We're in The Celebrity Apprentice now. And we watched season 1 with Piers Morgan. Now we're in season 2 with a lot of great people too, including the great late Joan Rivers. But one thing I remember about Trump in The Celebrity Apprentice and The Regular Apprentice, he hates quitters. He doesn't like people quitting. In fact, if you remember those boardroom discussions on The Apprentice with President Trump, anytime, there's a few times in these reality shows, right, The Apprentice, Survivor, all of them, where someone thinks they're going to get canned, they're going to get kicked off the show. So a lot of people get very cowardly and quit. And anytime someone ever gave a hint of quitting, well, there may be an exception or two, President Trump fired them right away. He did not like quitters. He does not have respect for quitters. And we know the president himself is not a quitter because look at the persecution that he went through over these past 4 years, right? During the Autopin administration of Joe Biden, they put President Trump through living hell. In fact, this weekend is sadly the 1-year anniversary of when the Never Trumpers and others shot him in Butler. And through everything he went through, he stood up and never quit. And all of that would have ended if he would have said, I'm not running, I'm out. All that was because he was running for president again. That's why all those things happened. And he still stood up and he won. He persevered and he's president again, which is absolutely amazing. And I know I'm not the only one. The non-consecutive term makes it much better, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, it certainly does. But Dan Bongino talking about quitting, I don't know how President Trump would take that. Right? How do you think President Trump would take that? Just knowing a little bit about his history, President Trump, so far as quitters go. And I know The Apprentice and The Celebrity Apprentice isn't the presidency in the White House. I understand it was a reality television show. But after all those seasons, you did get to see a lot of what the president's true personality was like. And we know he's not a quitter because of everything he went through over these last 4 years, okay? So my first guess would be that President Trump is not happy with this quitter talk. That would be my guess. Now let's say that Dan Bongino does resign. What happens at that point? If he resigns and he's gone, what happens? Does he return to his podcast and take over from, what's the guy that took over Vince? Is it the Vince show? Does he go back to his podcast? Certainly you would think he would at least do interviews, but I would think he would take back his podcast, don't you? So if Dan Bongino quits, right, say he quits, what's he going to do from that point forward? On it publicly, right? He's going to have to talk about this. So so say he resigns over this, Dan Bongino, and I don't think President Trump would appreciate the resignation. If you're on hold, stand by. I'll go to the phones shortly, but I want to get a couple of things out before I do. And I think we can assume that President Trump's not happy with the quitting talk. That's one, right? That's one. So say he does resign, Dan Bongino, and he quits. That would mean Pam Bondi's still the Attorney General, at least for now. And hey, let me be perfectly clear. Pam Bondi's a Bush Republican, and she screwed up here. She has caused a PR disaster for our entire great movement that our president founded and leads, and I'm plenty ticked at her. And I'd like to see Pam Bondi replaced as Attorney General with Judge Jogn, who's the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. Okay? Not only, I know a lot of people are saying Alina Habba. The reason Judge Jogn, we know she's tough. She would view this as her last gig in government, being the Attorney General, Judge Jogn. And Alina Habba, because she's younger, she could be thinking about her future beyond Trump in the White House. I don't think that would be I love Alina Habba, but you know, she's young, she's thinking about her future. Judge Jogn will be like, hey, this is it for me. I'm going to do what's right. I don't care. There's nothing they could do to me at my age, right? And she's tough. Everybody loves Judge Jogn. So, but I think she should be gone, Pam Bondi. There's no question about it. There's just no question about it. But so Dan Bongino resigns, he quits. I'm going to assume the president's not happy with that because that means he's standing behind Pam Bondi and he doesn't like quitters, as I was saying. So then Dan Bongino, I'm assuming, returns to his podcast. Maybe the radio show too, I don't know, but certainly his podcast. So what does he do on the air? This is not something he can ignore. And once he resigns, he's always going to be connected with this. This is going to be a massive story. If he resigns, it's going to be a massive story. And you know how the media are going to operate. They're going to make a scandal out of it. And for those of you just joining on YouTube, yes, I spilled coffee on my shirt just as I was pressing go live at the same time. I pressed go live and I was putting my coffee down at the same time I spilled coffee on my shirt. So that's my morning coffee on my shirt. Yes, guys. Oh my goodness. It happens. So he's got to deal with this on the air. So what does he do? Does Bongino go on the air and attack Pam Bondi, even attack the administration. And here's the thing. Say that he goes back on his podcast. He resigns. Dan Bongino resigns. That means Pam Bondi's still the attorney general. He resigned in protest. So now he's back on the air doing his podcast every day. Well, in the beginning, it's going to be about Bondi, Pam Bondi, and her screw up and what happened. But, you know, in my years of doing this, things build, okay? So the first week, he's going after Pam Bondi. He's exposing why he walked away and everything. What happens in week 2 and 3 and 2 months down the road on that podcast? What would happen, and this is, I don't know if Dan, you know, I know he's fuming, and when you're angry, as he has good reason to be angry with Pam Bondi here. This is just a disaster, okay? It really is. We might as well have Barr back as the Attorney General with this nonsense going on, right? But, you know, what would be, and I know how these things work, guys. The first week, he'd be talking and angry about this. The second week, he'd try to continue it. But after a while, he's got to move on to other things. So does he become a MAGA critic of the MAGA movement? At some point, after the second, third week, 2 months out, is he going to be critical of a lot of things involving the Trump administration and even the president himself? These things build on one another. And when you get involved in something, you know, President Trump thinks 5 to 10 steps ahead with everything he does. And so what would happen with Dan Bongino? How could he resign, try to go back to his podcast as normal, and then a month or two out, not be critical of the Trump administration and the president? It would turn into that, in my opinion. Now, the other thing but James just sent a super chat. Thank you so much, James. Greatly appreciated. Another thing to think about is this, and then I'll take your calls at 1-888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. Do you think that prior to this story with Bongino considering resigning, and now we're also hearing Cash is thinking about resigning if Bongino does, how do you think the president feels about this? Do you feel that President Trump is upset with Dan Bongino doing this? I was talking about how he doesn't like quitters, but does President Trump feel that Bongino is trying to put pressure on him to do something he doesn't want to do, which is get rid of Pam Bondi? And by the way, President Trump making a decision as of now, I mean, this could change in 5 seconds. President Trump could wake up today. He's scrolling through social media. He's seeing what you guys are seeing and go on True Social and fire Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Bongino. He could fire them all or none or one of them. It could happen at any moment. I think you guys know that President Trump feels the pulse of the public at all times with what's going on. And Turning Point USA's conference, they had Tucker, you had Charlie Kirk on stage, you had Laura Ingraham on stage, you had the great Steve Bannon on stage. And all of them were talking about the Epstein case, Pam Bondi's screw up, Bongino talking about resigning. It broke while Bannon was on stage. And the audience, the crowd at Turning Point, want her gone. And if you look at social media, everyone's behind Cash and Dan Bongino, not Bondi. So will Trump stand by Bondi because he doesn't want to be pushed around by Bongino? Is he upset with Bongino that Bongino, it appears he's trying to put pressure on him to do something he didn't want to do right now? Or maybe he was thinking about doing it, but he doesn't want to give the appearance that Bongino forced him into it. All right, I'm going to take some calls before I get into some of the audio sound bites and some of the news stories on this. The number, if you're watching live, you can call me live, 888-465-2631. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? You're on the air. Once, twice. All right, you missed your chance. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, good morning. Before I spill my coffee on myself.
Hey, it happens, man. You never spilled coffee?
Yeah, I can believe it. I do the same
I could
thing.
take a break and change shirts. I mean, but why? Who cares? At my age, who cares?
when you get to be my age, you'll be spilling coffee all over yourself. You'll be walking around with stains all day.
Hey, maybe people will stare at the coffee I spilled on my shirt. It'll help with the retention of the video. People will watch longer to see if I do it again.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank God for you on Saturday. It's a blessing for me. I mean, this is like I look forward to Monday. Now I don't have to do that anymore. Here's what I got to say about this. Now, Dan Bongino and Cash are going to go unless she quits, and I'll tell you why they got to go, because of Brian, Craig, and 1,000 other influences that are all over the internet and on radio stations. I mean, I listen to you, and it's not a knock on you because that's what everyone believed, that Dan Bongino looked uncomfortable many times. He looked like he didn't know how to do the job. He looked like he wasn't doing anything. And everyone was attacking his character and his because he spent all those years building up that radio station of his, and everyone believed in him, and he comes out there and he's a big dud. Well, now we find out why he's a dud, and it's not just this case. I understand from other reports, I think Laura Loomer might have even reported it, that it's many cases she won't bring out. She's completely shielding not just this case, but other cases.
I was reading one yesterday. There was a big pharmaceutical company that they said she's doing something. You know, this is the thing you got to understand about Pam Bondi. She's a Bush Republican who came up through the ranks through Jeb Bush. Okay, and that's a fact here in Florida. And the other thing is, while she wasn't personally overseeing the Epstein case, I've mentioned this a few times, and Richie's a Florida man too, so he'll tell you, the Epstein case was in the local news for many years before any of you nationally heard about it. So it was a local story. While she was Attorney General all those years, she knows this case inside and out, everything about it, and has been involved in it longer than anyone, just because she was a Florida person and a Florida Attorney General. And I think it looks like she was covering up for someone by declaring case closed.
Well, she was, because I believe wholeheartedly Alan Dershowitz knows the list, and he was furious himself. And he said it wasn't right that she was doing it, basically. And it's not just, it's President Trump. I'm the first to tell you, didn't I say the buck stops with President Trump?
Yep.
But now I realize it didn't stop with President Trump. She's made decisions and really botched this up. Just this one thing botched up. And I got to tell you, Steve, I had called you and I put, I don't know if you saw it. I wanted to get back on. I didn't believe Steve just throwing this off like it was a nothing burger, that we have other big fish to fry, you know? I mean, this is child trafficking, man. I mean, this is what he ran on, that he's going to end this, and it ticked off a lot of people. And now Dan Bongino's so ticked off, he's going to walk away.
Well, Richie, this is what I want to be. Now, this is what I want to talk to you, because if you're on hold, stand by. I got plenty of time to get to all of you. Don't worry. I'm not as rushed as I am during the week when I do these weekend things here from my home studio. Dan Bongino obviously is going to return to his podcast if he quits. And a lot of you don't know this. He's a Florida guy too. He bought a vacant, I believe it was a McDonald's, and he refurbished it and built a multi-million-dollar television podcast studio. I've got a very nice studio at home, but I converted my daughter's bedroom when she moved to California into my studio. This used to be my daughter's bedroom. Now it's a studio. It's very nice. I've got modern equipment and everything. But I mean, he laid out millions, and it was when he took this job, it was rumored that he was making $1 million a month on his podcast and radio show. And that Vince guy, or whatever his name is, they replaced him with, is not Bongino. So Bongino returns to his podcast. And as I was saying, the first week or two, he'll be trashing Bondi and talking about this. But in week 3 and week 8 and week 12, is he going to become a MAGA critic even though he's MAGA? You understand what I mean? You can't do a show. What would he do? What would he do in 2 months for content if he has this kind of falling out with them?
He's 100% MAGA. He's still MAGA.
Yeah, no,
he's going after her. He's MAGA.
But Trump.
People will follow him.
But if President Trump, well, hold on, Richie. This is what I'm trying to ask you. Okay, if he quits, that means the president's sticking with Bondi, at least for the time being. is President Trump going to be pissed off at Dan Bongino for quitting? Because he's resigning from him.
I believe you always say President Trump does nothing wrong.
I agree. I always support President Trump. Always.
If President Trump, this is my opinion, if President Trump Dan Bongino walks away and Kash Patel walks away and he keeps Pam Bondi, my opinion is the biggest mistake ever of his presidency, and it won't recover, because there are people that really believe in Kash, and Dan Bongino, your reputation as a talk show host is everything. You know, you got people calling you these crazy names and attacking you for your political beliefs, but you're consistent, and they know how you believe, and your reputation means everything to you. If they caught you doing something crazy in your neighborhood and you were arrested, God forbid, for some stupid thing, it would be all over, and it would ruin your whole career. You're not going to do something like that. You're going to toe the line. You're going to
but the thing with Bongino, see, this is how it's looked until recently.
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
The way it's looked is that Bongino this is how it looked, and I've talked about this since that Bartiromo interview. Now things have changed now because we've had a lot of developments, but what it looked like is he had been padding his resume a little bit and hyping himself up beyond his abilities. And what he would, if he resigns and goes back to his podcast, he's going to tell us the truth. I had a team ready. I wanted to go and bust into Mershon's bank and get his financial records. That's the judge in New York. I wanted to go down to Fulton County and arrest Fanny and her boy toy, and Bondi wouldn't let me. Now that's a whole other story. Yeah. And if that's true, he should resign and tell us what she's been doing.
Well, I think he will, because listen, Brian, he's been taking crap from everybody that he doesn't know what he's doing.
That's right.
It's not just you. It's half the MAGA movement.
That's right.
Disappointed in him and Kash. So in other words, her blunders and mistakes are costing his reputation. And you once said he won't be able to get if he goes back with a bad reputation, he can't go back to his radio station when this gig is over.
That's right.
He's a young man. This gig is going to just be a short amount of time for 2-3 more years. So he's looking at his future. It's not as a politician.
Well, his life's a wreck. He did an interview a few weeks back on Fox and Friends, and he slipped. And he didn't look well, and he said, my wife and I are divorced. Well, not divorced. I'm living in D.C., and she's in Florida. I was like, ooh. And, and with marriages, and I think you'll back this up, Richie. I'm not talking about you or me. I've been married 29 years this year. I've only been married once, But from people I know that have been divorced and remarried, two things cause divorces: an affair or money. And he walked away from this $1 million a month job. His wife and their lifestyle was at that level. And they're not making that kind of money with this guy that they tried to replace him with. So there's financial pressures, too, that are factoring in.
Right. And his reputation is being totally soiled up until now
destroyed.
Because of her. I guess because of her.
Yeah.
It's one thing it's one thing if you're on the radio and you're making mistakes, okay? But if somebody else is screwing up and you're catching all the heat for their screw-ups, eventually he's going to get to you. I'm shocked that he lasted this long before he walked out. And because there's other things, she won't prosecute anything.
Well, he doesn't want to. If you're a MAGA, and by the way, Dan Bongino is MAGA. That is not. No one questions that. Pam Bondi. Now that's another case. And I want to tell you guys, people don't understand this. Okay, Florida is a strong red MAGA state. However, the Bush Republicans run the political machine in Florida still. That's why DeSantis betrayed Trump. It's I know Loomer said yesterday that DeSantis is on the short list to be Attorney General to replace Bondi if there's a replacement. We don't have open carry in Florida because the Bush Republicans. So there's the Bush Republicans ran, and I'm talking about the Jeb Bush Republicans. They run this state still, and she did come up through them, and that's it. I mean, that's the reality, and
this is a lawyer, right?
Yeah, remember he was a JAG lawyer, right? Remember that? He was the legal advisor to the SEALs.
there you go. There's your attorney general, because he's on a short list. I mean, and that's his resume. I guarantee you, he'd make a great one. Believe it or not, even though because this guy goes after everything. I mean,
Maybe.
He might not. I mean, he's as tough as a cookie. There isn't anything in Florida,
Well, DeSantis, all the problems we have with DeSantis, because he lied to us all about being mad. He lied to the president, so I don't know if he'd get the job.
That's a big.
But DeSantis, as governor, he's still doing hardcore things that we love, like he's talking about trying to get rid of our property taxes and other things. But if he became attorney general, see, what DeSantis is trying to do right now is resurrect his reputation that he's real deal. So he might go, if he became attorney general to replace her, he might do everything we want just to try to prove himself to us that we can trust him. He's
responsible for the alligator prison down there, too.
Yeah, that's true, and he got it done.
He's the one that went to President Trump. So, he doesn't have, listen, not for nothing, he doesn't have the personality of a Trump. That's what hurt him, and the popularity.
And the high heel shoes don't help. The high heels don't help either. That he still wears. If you go to the alligator Alcatraz video with Trump, he's wearing them there.
We wouldn't have looked at the high heels.
Yeah.
Brian, we wouldn't have looked at the high heels. I mean.
Yeah, we would have ignored them.
This guy was. Yeah, he hasn't got the charisma that you wanted. But he's a cut and dry guy. But the guy is always up. Even when that apartment building and the condo collapsed, he was there every day. This guy is dedicated to his job.
But I'd still rather see Judge Janine than DeSantis. But but Pam Bondi, I think President Trump should get rid of her. I really do. But
absolutely.
But here's the thing, Richie. Here's the thing. If he were to do it now, it looks like Bongino pushed him into it. And does the president want that look?
He's not going to get that look because you got the support. President Trump always goes. He checks out what's the feeling of the country. He sees now that this ain't going away. He has no choice to get rid of her, or either that he's going to lose. It's still going to be going on, and he's going to have no FBI leader. He's going to lose Ben, and he's going to lose Cash. They teamed up. They're not leaving each other.
Yeah, but what do I know? I'm just a guy who spilled his coffee on his T-shirt this morning. So what do I know?
Yeah, I predict that Pam Bondi doesn't last till Tuesday.
Really, that's a bold prediction. It's this is the thing, okay? President, if you guys go back to The Apprentice, and I know that's just a TV show, it's not necessarily real life, but he does not like people who quit.
But he also doesn't like screw-ups, and she's a screw-up. That's the bottom line.
Well, from our perspective, but if she was covering up for someone, she did the right thing for them, right?
Oh yeah, but that's the wrong thing for the country. I'm sorry.
All right, Richie, take care. All right. So if anybody else would like to call in, please do. The number's the same number I use every day of the week: 888-465-2631. I do want to play this audio. 888-465-2631 is the toll-free number to call in. Okay, now this is John Solomon, and he was on Real America's Voice, and he actually added quite a bit to this. If you're on hold, hang in there. I want to play John Solomon, and then we'll get back to some calls. Okay, now see, John Solomon, he gave us some real big news here. In fact, this is a bigger story. It's kind of dropped in there a couple times. He mentioned it, but this is a story bigger than even the Dan Bongino resigning story, right? What he just said, and he's got good sources, and his reporting is very accurate. No one's reporting is as accurate as Laura Loomer, but Laura Loomer's at 100% accuracy rate. I don't know what his accuracy rate is, but this is some hardcore stuff. He says the Justice Department, now that's Pam Bondi, have been building a whole case of a conspiracy against Trump for the last decade, right before Crossfire Hurricane. So we're talking about from the wiretapping on Trump Tower to all the way through the election cycle, Butler, the golf course, and beyond. So like the big, beautiful bill, they've been building a big, beautiful case against the lawfare people that's going to be revealed all at once with a grand conspiracy. First time I've heard that. Have you heard that before? I have not. And if anybody says that they have, they're lying, because I haven't heard anyone say this other than him on that. And he's at the Turning Point conference. That's absolutely stunning to me. So that would change everything, right? Because if what John Solomon is saying is true, that they have one big, beautiful lawfare case going back a decade, oh boy. Exactly. That means they may have indictments already that are sealed indictments from grand juries that they just haven't leaked out. So this adds a whole new wrinkle. All right, back to our phones. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mike from Louisiana.
Hey, Mike.
You're right. It is a big deal, and if it's true, then again, Dan Bongino has kind of jumped the gun. But again, here's the deal with Pam Bondi. Remember, and I said this past week, she wasn't Trump's original choice for AG. It was Matt Gaetz. And again, you just about her being a Bushy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so come up through Jeb Bush. So again, I don't like people that are Bushies, you know, and that includes Supreme Court Justice there, John Roberts. He's a Bush.
Well, the thing about this is, because a lot of people may not understand, okay, maybe, you're holding grudges. No, the Bush Republicans are the former Republican establishment. MAGA's the establishment now, but these people are lying in wait, assuming, well, when Trump's term's over, they're going to make their move again and take control of the party again. So they're still, you know what I mean? So they're still in the background. Jeb may still have some fantasy he's going to be president. Who knows? Or at least somebody that he controls, like DeSantis or something. So they're in the Bush Republicans, which are really led by Jeb more than GW, right? They're just in the background waiting and plotting. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. You appreciate the call, Mike, from Louisiana. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, how you doing?
All right.
I'm Wayne from Mississippi.
Hey, Wayne.
First time caller.
Welcome.
Thanks. I watch your show just about every morning.
Oh, great.
I'm a MAGA person, okay? I love Donald Trump. Been voting for him ever since he ran first time in 2016.
I'm waiting for the but.
I am still a MAGA person, but I have so many questions that I can't answer, and I don't have the answers to.
Well, I want to stick to everything that's going on now with, Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and such. But I'll see where you're going. But I don't want to deviate too much from that on this program. But what's on your mind?
Okay, I was in the military. I served in the military, Gulf War, Iraq, and all that. I was in the infantry. All right, now the thing about, I love Kash Patel. I love Bon Jovi. I don't understand.
You mean Bongino, you don't mean John Bon Jovi. You mean Dan Bongino.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't understand why Trump trusts certain people like Musk when Musk is on record as being a socialist. Okay,
Well,
Pam,
okay, you might ask, okay, I'll just say about Elon Musk. What President Trump did when the campaign, before he even announced, I was telling people on the program here, President Trump is going to ally himself during the campaign with people you may not like and I may not like. Okay, but go along. But we got to follow him, and he knew what he was doing. And Elon Musk, just like Bobby Kennedy Jr., gave a lot of people the okay. These are Democrats, right? Elon had very vocally voted for anybody but Trump in the past, and Bobby Kennedy, the Kennedys. What Bobby Kennedy Jr. did and Elon Musk is give a lot of people personal permission that are lifelong Democrats to vote for a Republican for the first time in their life. And there's a lot to say with that, I mean, I'm starting to think that maybe Elon Musk thought he could convince Trump not to drop the EV mandates, and maybe that's why he was supporting him, because I saw when I was younger, I used to drive Volkswagen Bugs a lot, and they got this new Volkswagen bus. It looks like the classic bus, but it's an EV. And I'm not into EVs, but that bus looks pretty cool. And I was at the light next to one yesterday, and I was talking to my wife on the phone, and I said, "Who's going to buy these EVs when they don't get the tax deduction next year? No one's going to buy them. That whole business is going to dry up, And maybe that's what Elon was doing, but no, President Trump was making friends with enemies, in some respect, to help get us over the hump to win the vote, and it got him back in the White House. But he's the man now, and now we can see who was really with him or not. And Elon helped a little bit. He campaigned every single day for a month in Pennsylvania, and people that are lifelong Democrats, they go in that voting booth to vote for someone who's a Republican. No matter what's going on, it's a very bad habit and instinct that's tough to break. And a lot of Tulsi Gabbard's another one. Okay, these lifelong Democrats gave a lot of Tulsi Gabbard and the other ones we're mentioning gave permission to people to say, okay, I'm going to vote. My mother voted for Donald Trump in this election. Okay, my mother's retired. She's in her 70s. She has never voted for a Republican in her life for anything. She's a lifelong Democrat voter on everything, straight down the ballot. She voted for President Trump for the first time. She voted for a Republican in her entire life. And that's what Elon, Tulsi, Bobby Kennedy, and others gave permission for people to do. Does that make sense to you?
The old Democrats, they believe in the old democratic system.
Yeah.
Back when Kennedy,
correct,
and all that. But the new Democrat system is just socialist.
Well, look, we had three. We got three, right? Elon, Bobby Kennedy, and Tulsi. Elon's out. At the cabinet meeting the other day, Tulsi Gabbard's there, but she didn't even participate. She's out, even though she's there. And Bobby Kennedy's been doing the right thing so far.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love Bobby. I love him.
Yeah, I hope to meet him. I got a lot of respect for his uncle and his dad. I'd just like to shake his hand, Bobby Kennedy. That'd be amazing.
I believe in my heart Trump is the greatest president since Reagan in my time.
Greater than Reagan. And
yeah, greater than Reagan, to be honest with you. And I have questions like, why is he wanting to send more missiles to Ukraine when he was trying to get us out of these wars?
Well, listen, I don't want to get sidetracked on every issue under the book, okay? But because I want to kind of get focused on the topic of the day. But call me next week and we'll talk about some of these other things. All right? Hey, Wayne, appreciate the call. All right, if you'd like to call in, please do 1-888-465-2631. Remember, Fridays is open phones. 888-465-2631. President Trump. One thing about President Trump that has amazed me since he was running for president the first time. He knows everything that's going on in the news. And what I mean is not a big picture. He knows little tiny things that you and I might see in a post on social media. And I've seen him change his opinion on something based on that. As the most recent example of that was he was talking about some sort of amnesty for the illegals that work on farms. He even mentioned it on July 3rd, he had that Iowa rally. He even mentioned it in Iowa, remember? And then after the 4th of July weekend at that cabinet meeting, he was very clear, very firm, as were the other cabinet members, no amnesty for these people. And then what happened? We got this ICE raid at that child labor camp at the pot farm in California a couple days ago, okay? And President Trump changed his opinion about the illegals on the farms because of MAGA opinion out there against it and upset with it. And that's what's been in play here with Bondi in that Epstein case. Turning Point USA, you go through it. Here you have Prosovic, Charlie Kirk, and Steve Bannon on stage taking polls, about Epstein. Everybody's on the right side against Bondi. Laura Ingraham was there on stage doing the same thing yesterday. And believe me, President Trump knows about all these things. And this is, maybe President Trump was advised by Pam Bondi and some others, this thing's not that big of a deal. And now he knows that it is front and center with so many millions of his strongest supporters. And that means it's important to him because he represents us and he's aware of that. All right, you're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Tracy from the United States Republic.
Okay.
Is there any proof that Epstein is even dead other than hearsay?
Well, the president said he is, and he passed away during President Trump's first term, so I take the good word of President Trump that he is. So if President Trump says that Epstein is dead, I believe President Trump, always.
Okay.
All right.
Agree with that also.
Yeah.
But what proof do we, the people, have?
What proof? What proof do I have that my grandma's dead? What do you want? You want to go get a shovel and dig them up? What do you want? If President Trump was president, it was in I think he died in 2019, right? President Trump was president in 2019, and he says he's dead. So I'm going to take the president at his word.
Okay, I'll accept that. Thank you.
All right, okay. He asked a good question. I gave him a good answer. Now, I want to tell you guys, he said proof, so that's the best proof there is the good word of President Trump. I want to tell you guys, if you'd like to support my content, go to mypillow.com, use my promo code KANE, K-A-N-E, at checkout, and you can take advantage of all the specials there. But I want to take a moment to tell you about the MyPillow mattress topper. I've been sleeping on the MyPillow 3-inch mattress topper, which you can get for 30% off, comes in every mattress size for years now. And I remember the first day I got that, it was a Saturday. I came home and the mattress topper was in a box on my front porch, and my wife and I slept on that night, Saturday night, on our 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper. And the next day on Sunday, I woke up and the sun was out. I couldn't believe it. And I always wake up at early hours of the morning because of my schedule, even if I don't have the alarm set. And for the first time, I slept until the sun came up in years because of that 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper. Basically what it does, it turns your whole bed into a MyPillow. When I was a kid growing up, and I think a lot of you have this experience, remember we used to flip our mattresses? Right? You just flip your mattress every once in a while, every few years, and mattresses would last like forever. Well, mattress companies wised up to that, and now they're all like boxes underneath. You can't flip mattresses anymore. That's a racket to make you buy more mattresses. If you have a lumpy, bumpy mattress, an uneven mattress, think you need a new mattress, go to mypillow.com, get yourself the 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper. There's also a 2-inch version, which I have on my guest bed. And my daughter, I got one for her to put on her sleeper sofa because it folds up actually in the sleeper sofa. And I've slept on the 2-inch MyPillow mattress topper as well on the guest bed. Like if I got a cold or something, I'll sleep in the guest room so I don't make my wife sick. It's wonderful too. 30% off the MyPillow mattress topper with my promo code KANE at checkout. If you think you've gotten a good night's sleep, you haven't until you slept on the 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper. You'll love it. And by the way, It fits perfectly on the bed with a strap on each corner. It doesn't move. It sits in place, and it's machine washable, and you can dry it too. And I've had mine for years. Go mypillow.com, promo code Kane, Kane, at checkout for huge savings. Okay, 30% off the 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper. Okay, so if you're just joining, yes, I spilled coffee on my shirt. I was pressing live. As I was pressing live, I spilled the coffee on my shirt as I was pressing live. So, so I am aware that I have a coffee stain on my shirt. and I'll change the shirt after the stream. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just wear this all day. I don't know. But what we're talking about is the big announcement from Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, and it was actually reported that it was there was a dust up between Bongino and Pam Bondi, and he's upset and fed up over what's going on with the Epstein file release. And Richie, the bus driver, called in earlier, and he was talking about Bongino's reputation. We've all been disappointed in Bongino, and now we're finding out that maybe he was so nervous and angry and upset in those interviews because Pam Bondi was the one putting pressure on him. A lot of people were saying, oh, these guys, Cash and Bongino, that maybe they got visits at home from these deep staters, and it looks like the pressure's been from Pam Bondi. And when he's been out there for years talking about this case, and then this happens at the last moment, his reputation is important. He's got a career ahead of him, and he doesn't want his reputation soiled by her cover-up, which is basically what it is. It's a cover-up. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Scott, and I called yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to ask some questions. I will ask them this morning. Be quick about it, too. Yeah, I had a little trouble with the president not reading the room and reading his constituents when he said, "You are interested in this," being a list, and instead of he wants everybody to be focused on the flood and other things that he's working on. And so that part I don't get. There's a lot of things I don't get about this. How come Epstein went back to New York right into a handcuff ambush?
Listen, I don't want to sit here and rehash all the Epstein story. That's been talked about for like 15 years. I want to talk about the stuff that's new, and I'll comment on what you said about the cabinet meeting. President Trump has the weight of the world on him. I mean, look at everything he's doing. So if you're President Trump, and you look at everything he's doing, you got to understand something. He has shut down our border. He's involved in the largest deportation movement in history, repelling this invasion USA. He took a strong stand on Truth Social over this child labor slave farm, that pot farm out in California under Newsom, where they were attacking the soldiers that were there and everything, the Mexicans there and everything else. When he came into office, there were 5 wars going on. He's ended 4 of the 5 wars in the world in the last couple of months. The trade deals. If you were to put, there's only 24 hours in a day, and even the president has to sleep a little bit. So he's got to say, okay, these are my priorities. So where does the Epstein case go on his list? What happened when you're an executive, you hire people to delegate things to, and he's hired literally thousands of people, but he has all these government agencies. Every hire that he's made, every cabinet secretary that he's hired has done their job with perfection and gone above and beyond, except Pam Bondi. So, and he brought all these people in to delegate that realm to them. Like he's not, like, as an example, he's not personally taking on the pharmaceuticals. Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Oz are, okay? So, so the Epstein case, I'm not saying it's not important, but he's got bigger fish to fry in the immediacy.
Yeah, I understand that. And the thing, he instead of, what bothered me was, what, you want me to look at that? So he says, when we got all this other stuff, so he could have said, I've got people that are working on that. I will refer you to them. That is a very important issue, and he didn't do that.
Well, yesterday, at Turning Point USA has their conference going on this weekend, and all the big names are there: Tucker and Laura Ingraham and Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec, and Steve Bannon. Yeah. And Steve Bannon, and they're all talking about what we're talking about right now on stage at Turning Point. And Steve Bannon said this change that has happened involving the Epstein case with the Trump administration in the last couple of days, he said it's because of you. He was talking to the audience. It's because President Trump did not obviously realize the outrage that how important that was, and the outrage that MAGA people would have. He's aware of it now, and I promise you, he's taking action. Now, and a lot of people may say, well, why doesn't he just fire Pam Bondi? He may, but then again, if he keeps her, he can control her. If he gets rid of her, she could become one of these never Trumper plotters running for president against him in a couple of years. You understand what I mean? He's got some control over her if she stays working for him. He may decide that's a better course of action than having her as a wild woman who's going to be out to destroy him for the next couple of years.
But I could see her out there running her mouth to the mainstream media.
Hell yeah, and she loves to do television interviews.
Yeah, she's there was a word for it back in the 1990s. Somebody who craves attention from any media whatsoever. I wish I could remember that term.
Jesse Jackson, a media whore.
Well, that one will work. Yeah, that'll do just fine.
No, that's what they used to say about Jesse Jackson. And they used to say that the most dangerous place in America to stand was between a television camera and Jesse Jackson because he's such a media whore. He'll run you over just to get to that camera.
Yeah, I know. And, but speaking of media whores, I'm just wondering, where are all the Epstein Vicks with their Madeleine Albright attorneys? I don't see it.
Yeah.
Where are they? I'm not seeing it.
Well, there's something to be said. Epstein's been out of circulation for a while. Not everybody on that list is probably still with us.
Oh my God! See that? What he did his own Auschwitz. And if
you lawyer up with these famous lawyers, everyone's going to know you're on the list too. So they don't want to do that.
Well, that hasn't stopped other people.
And there was a story yesterday. That video that Pam Bondi released was it had some metadata. People said it was edited, and I saw somebody in the chat room reminded me it was edited, I think, in Adobe Premiere, which is a program I have on my computer. Why was that edited in Adobe Premiere, and is that where the missing minute went? Pam. Here's the thing. Even if she's not a crook working for the Bushes and was involved in a cover-up, even if and I'm not saying it looks like that way to me, but even if she wasn't, she's stupid. She created a PR disaster where, there's so many things going on to deal with. Why put this front and center? Right? Why open up this can of worms?
Well, I think that a lot of people want to hang.
Hey, I'm going to move. But hey, listen, I appreciate the call. Now, I played this a little while ago, but I want to play it to you guys that may just have been joining us because out of all of this, this is the big story, and I'm imagining other people are going to pick up on this, and it's going to. This is John Solomon. He was on Real America's Voice last night, and he's at the Turning Point USA conference. And he was talking about the Bongino resignation and dropped massive news. You know that?
Dan Bongino is taking a few days to reconsider whether he wants to stay in the job. That's his decision. He's gone through these things before. There have been times he's been on radio. He got mad, took a couple days off. I bet you he'll come back when it's all done. But Cash Patel is going nowhere. And I think next week, over the next 10 days, and the base who's been wondering, where's all that accountability? You're going to get some big surprises over the next week concerning where the conspiracy began a few weeks before Crossfire Hurricane was open, and when it ended, all the way in 2024, when the president tried to sue Donald Trump to keep him from winning the presidency. There's a big case that's been built by the Justice Department and the FBI. It's been masked by a lot of this infighting and drama and soap opera stuff, but the truth of the matter is, MAGA base Americans are going to be happy when they see where this is all heading in the next few weeks. Cash Patel's going nowhere. I hope Bongino isn't going anywhere, but I do think he's going to take some time over the weekend to think that through.
Okay, now John Solomon, this is huge stuff. So he said the Justice Department, that's Pam Bondi, he said they consider the lawfare against President Trump one big case, not a case here, not a case there, not Fannie, not Letitia, not Judge Mershon, not a Comey Brennan case, that it's one big conspiracy, one big RICO case. And he said, and John Solomon is a credible man. So this is, he says the Justice Department has been building one big, beautiful lawfare case that goes back 10 years. And this is going to be revealed. Now, this is the first time I've heard this. I haven't heard anyone else say this or report this other than him. But if that's the case, not only is that incredibly good news, but that means if it's the Justice Department, isn't that Pam Bondi did that? And maybe that's why the president is standing by Pam Bondi, because of this. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? It absolutely is. So, listen, one of the reasons I always say we've got to stand by President Trump is because he knows more about what's going on than any of us. And I always trust Trump. And, you've got to. You've got to trust Trump. He's earned that over what's happened the last 4 years, right? Tomorrow's the first anniversary of when the Never Trumpers shot him in Butler. Okay, remember where you were when the president was shot? I do. I was watching it right here on Right Side Broadcasting. So if what John Solomon is reporting is true, that changes everything, doesn't it? I hope it is. I mean, he is a credible reporter. I mean, I don't follow him as close as I follow a lot of other people. But he does have the respect of a lot of people. Now, if you'd like to support my channel and all of my content, become a Patreon supporter. If you become a Patreon supporter, there's a link to my Patreon page in the description of the video. You get access to commercial-free editions of all of my podcast episodes, including a lot of exclusive content that I post nowhere else, including blogs, okay? Like my visit to my undercover to the No Kings event I made that exclusive to our Patreon supporters. You get commercial-free editions of all of my podcast episodes, as well as other vlogs. I'm going to go vlog today, and that'll be available to just Patreon supporters. And remember I got a call yesterday about when a guy was going to kill me in Jacksonville, and I made a vlog about it. I posted that video for Patreon supporters yesterday exclusively. You guys can see that. And also, if you become a top Patreon supporter, you get a live on-air thank you shout out and get your name up on the screen. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters, and I want to thank all of them. SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, David, Laura, Rob, Tina, Wes, and Sue. These are our top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. And again, if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of the video, and the website address is patreon.com/RealBrianCraigShow. Patreon.com/RealBrianCraigShow. If you're new to my channel, my name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA Comes to Talk. Make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell. And I'll be back over the weekend, of course, always on YouTube live streaming, and I'll have a new podcast over the weekend. And also, as news breaks on this case and story with Bongino, I will break in on YouTube and with developments as they break over the weekend. And also, don't forget, I reformatted my podcast a few weeks back, where I'm now taking live calls on the Brian Craig Show podcast, and I do my podcast live here on YouTube, like I'm doing now, and during the week, taking calls. And the Brian Craig Show podcast is on all podcast platforms. Just search for the Brian Craig Show. All right, guys, I'll see you throughout the weekend. Take care. And, of course, this is where MAGA comes to talk.